In the object-oriented approach, the flow of information is achieved through sending messages either to and from actors or back and forth between internal objects. A system sequence diagram, or SSD, is used to describe this flow of information into and out of the automated portion of the system. So, an SSD documents the inputs and the outputs and identifies the interaction between actors and the system. It is an effective tool to help in the initial design of the user interface by identifying the specific information that flows from the user into the system and the information that flows out of the system back to the user. An SSD is a special type of UML sequence diagram. So this figure shows a generic SSD with callouts annotations annotating the diagram. As with a use case diagram, the stick figure represents an actor. It is a person or role who interacts with the system. But the emphasis in an SSD is on how the actor interacts with the system by entering input data and receiving an output data. The box labeled :system is an object that represents the entire automated system. In SSD and all other interaction diagrams, analysts use object notation instead of class notation. In object notation, a box refers to an individual object. Not the class of all similar objects. The notation is simply a rectangle with the name of the object underlined. The colon before the underlined class is a frequently used but optional part of the object notation to indicate that the system is an unnamed object of the class. In an SSD, the only object included is one representing the entire system, and a named object of the system class. So underneath the actor and the system is a vertical dash line called lifelines. A lifeline or object lifeline is simply the extension of the object. Either actor or object during the use case. The arrows between the lifelines represent the message sent by the actor. So each arrow has an origin and a destination. The origin of the message is the actor or object that sends it, as indicated by the lifeline at the arrow's tail. Similarly, the destination, actor, or object of a message is indicated by the lifeline that is touched by the arrowhead. The purpose of lifelines is to indicate the sequence of the messages sent and received by the actor and object. The sequence of messages is read from top to bottom in the diagram. A message is labeled to describe its purpose and any input data being sent. So the message name should follow the verb-noun syntax to make the purpose clear. The syntax of the message label has several options. The simplest forms is shown in this figure. So remember that the arrows are used to represent a message and input data. But what is meant by the term message here? In a sequence diagram, a message is an action that is invoked on a destination object, much like a command. So notice that in this figure, the input message is called inquire on item, meaning the clerk is sending a request or a message to the system to find an item. The input data that is sent with the message is contained within the parentheses. And in this case, it is data to identify a particular item. The syntax is simply the name of the message followed by the input parameters in parentheses. This form of syntax is attached to a solid line with arrow. The return value has a slightly different format and meaning. So notice that the line with arrow is dash. A dash arrow indicates a response or an answer or in programming, we call that a return. And as shown in this figure, it immediately follows the initiating message. So this message, the item information. The format of the label is also different because it is a response. Only the data that are sent on the response are noted. There is no message requesting a service, only the data being returned. For example, the description, price, and quantity of an item. However, an abbreviated version is also satisfactory. In this case, the information returned is name, item information. Additional documentation is required to show the details. So in this figure, this additional information is shown as a note. A note can be added to any UML diagram to add explanations. The details of item information could also be documented in supporting narratives or even simply referenced by an attributes in the customer class.